So today we're talking about K&N's Series 63 AirCharger Cold Air Intake, designed specifically for your 2015 or newer 5-liter powered F150. Now, cold air intakes are a really easy mod to install, and generally speaking, they make some decent performance gains even if you don't tune your truck. But why this intake in particular? Well, K&N's definitely one of the biggest names in the industry. They've been making intakes longer than I've been around, and they make really great high-flow air filters for all kinds of performance applications, and that's no different today. This new Series 63 system will definitely wake up that 5-liter motor. It's going to get more air to the engine. It's going to ditch that really crappy paper element and that really restrictive factory air box and tube in favor of something that's a lot more free-flowing, a lot more simpler in terms of the design, and in my humble opinion, a lot better looking, but I'll show you guys a comparison in a little bit. Now, this is also a really nice intake because it comes in under the $300 price point, which makes it one of the most affordable intakes that you can buy. I like that because K&N systems are honestly one of the best. Normally, they're a little bit more on the expensive side, but they're giving you a pretty good deal here today. And as far as the install is concerned, it's very simple to do, guys. It's a bolt-on job, and again, you don't have to tune the truck, so all I gotta do is throw on that new tube and that new filter, and you're pretty much done. This is definitely something that you can get done with basic hand tools, so I'm giving the install a very soft 1 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter, and honestly, it shouldn't take you more than an hour to get it bolted up. All right, guys, to install your intake, you'll need a drive ratchet with 7 and 8 millimeter sockets. You'll also need a 4 millimeter Allen key and a Phillips head screwdriver. Optional tools include a 16 and 19 millimeter wrench and some socket extensions. All right, so before we remove our factory intake tube and air box, we gotta tackle 2 of our hoses back here. Those are our breather hoses for our crankcase blow-by. Now, these are just held on with a couple of plastic retaining rings, so just give them a squeeze with your fingers and you should be able to pop both of them free. Okay, now we can disconnect our intake tube from our throttle body. In order to do that, you'll need a 7 millimeter socket for the band clamp, and it's helpful to have an extension if you're using a ratchet like me, just so you can clear the handle. Okay, we're finally ready to remove our factory intake. Pretty simple stuff. There's 2 little clamps right here securing the top of the air box, so go ahead and pop those free. Now, once you've done that, you can remove the entire intake as one piece, but you have a little crossover line here for your coolant coming to the overflow can, so make sure you don't pull on that as you're removing this. All right, so we have our factory intake removed. We're ready to throw our new one in, but before we do that, we have to do a little bit of a setup here to this stuff, get all those parts together, if you will. However, I wanted to show you guys a nice comparison here, and that way you can really see just how terrible, for lack of better phrasing, these factory paper elements are. As you can see, we're clearly working with a newer truck. This thing has pretty low miles on it, and this paper element filter really just doesn't do a good job of keeping that air clean, and it doesn't do a good job of keeping your engine breathing after a while. That's not the case with K&N's high flow filters. These things are awesome. They flow a lot more air to that motor. That's where you're gonna pick up that throttle response. That's how your engine's gonna breathe a lot better. And while we're here, some things to point out here. Like I said earlier, this thing's pretty minimalist. It's almost OEM in terms of its fit and finish. I actually like the plastic. I like the finish on it. It looks very similar to the factory plastic that's on the truck already. It's not one of those flashy, polished intake tubes that some other guys and gals appreciate. Now, as far as setup goes, make sure you got your weather stripping here on top of your heat shield already, and on the bottom, already provided in the kit. We also have to install the coupler in order to mate our new air filter to our new box here. So we can go ahead and we can throw this stock intake aside. You'll need some Allen keys. You'll also need those button head bolts inside the kit. I'll show you guys how to get this bolted up. Okay, so when you install the coupler on the heat shield, you want to line up those pre-threaded holes on the coupler with the holes in the heat shield itself. And go ahead and hand thread both of those bolts in on either side. Now, when you thread the bolts in, you want to make sure you have the appropriate crush washers and flat washers on there. And to tighten this stuff down, you'll need a 4 millimeter Allen key. All right, now that our heat shield is all set up, we're gonna install the barb fittings for those breather hoses. Now, if you have the intake tube facing you, then the smaller barb fitting is gonna go on the right-hand side, and the larger barb fitting is gonna go on the left-hand side. Now, these are plastic threads, so you wanna be very careful when you hand tighten these, and for good measure, you can grab a 16 millimeter wrench for the small fitting, give it a little bit of a turn just to make sure it's nice and tight, and you can grab a larger 19 millimeter wrench for the larger barb fitting. Okay, the last thing we have to do is throw our air filter onto our heat shield and that plastic coupler that we just installed. Make sure you have that large band clamp on the end of the filter itself so you can secure it. and you'll need a larger 8mm socket to tighten this down. Okay, we're finally ready to install our intake. Again, make sure you got those rubber couplers on the end of the intake tube. Go ahead and grab your band clamps, as well as that 8mm socket. I'll meet you guys over there, show you how to get this bolted on. All right, so our new heat shield pretty much installs the way the factory one came out. You got these little teeth on the end here. You want to line those up with these little square cutouts on the bottom of the factory air box. Once you've lined those up, the new heat shield should sit pretty much flush. And there's little channels on the left-hand side right here. They'll line up with those tabs that we just removed earlier. All right, once you got this thing seated, pretty simple. All you gotta do is press those two tabs back in that we removed earlier. Okay, we're gonna throw our intake tube in place now. Go ahead and throw one of those band clamps on the throttle body, and then line up that rubber coupler, make sure it's flush on the throttle body, and then you can tighten down that band clamp. All right, now we can secure our intake tube to our new heat shield and our filter. All right, our intake is secured. The last thing we need to do is reconnect both of those breather hoses. All right, so once you got both of those hoses connected, that'll wrap up this very easy install. And that also wraps up my review of the K&N Series 63 AirCharger Cold Air Intake fitting your 15 or newer 5-liter powered F150. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things F150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.